Miami was close to making the college football playoff in 2024. What will the projection look like in 2025? We're going to break down the schedule and give you that early projection here in this video. Miami's ACC schedule in 2025 is going to be pretty similar to the one in 24, but you look at the non-conference, and that's where the schedule gets tougher. So let's break it all down. Here is that full schedule, and we're going to start with the non-conference. So they'll play Notre Dame, Bethune-Cookman, South Florida, and Florida in the non-conference. So what's the big difference here? Obviously, you see it right there at the top. Notre Dame. They didn't play a second really good power quality opponent last year. They played Florida and then had some easier non-conference games. This year, they're going to play Florida and Notre Dame. So, a lot of people want the ACC and the SEC to go to, go to a 9-game conference schedule. But if you stay at an 8-game conference schedule, it does give you the opportunity to have a non-conference game against a team like Notre Dame and a team like Florida. And also they have South Florida in there as well. So a very tough non-conference schedule for Miami, other than Bethune-Cookman, obviously. But yeah, this is going to be a difficult non-conference schedule for the Hurricanes. Let's now look at who they play at home and who they play away, and we'll really kind of focus on the ACC teams. So in the ACC at home, they're going to play Louisville, Stanford, Syracuse, and NC State. And then on the road, they will play Florida State, SMU, Virginia Tech, and Pittsburgh. So obviously you see SMU there. SMU, a team that went to the ACC championship last year. So that's going to be a tougher opponent here on the schedule. But overall, it's pretty similar. They play several of the same teams that they played last year. So yeah, that's interesting there. So let's go game by game. And this is one of the weirdest schedules when you look at, a couple of things. First of all, it's the bye weeks. You've got 2 bye weeks right there early in the year, only 1 game in between the 2 bye weeks. That is strange. They also close out the year with back-to-back road games. They do start with 4 home games. So an interesting schedule here for Miami. They will open up week 1 at home against Notre Dame, and this is going to be one of the biggest non-conference games really in all of college football. This is going to be a huge game, and it's really going to set the tone for these two teams. You win this game, you've already got a huge win. You lose this game, you're kind of under a lot of pressure the rest of the season. This game is going to be on Sunday, August 31st. So the spotlight will be on this game, and it's going to be a big one. So again, win that game, and you're in great shape to maybe make a run at the college football playoff. You lose that game, you're under a lot of pressure. After that, they'll play Bethune-Cookman on September 6th. Then they'll play South Florida on September 13th. Then after that, it's Florida at home on September 20th. So they play all 4 non-conference games to start the season. All 4 of those games are at home. And then they get their first bye week on September 25th. And this is where it's just weird. You get Florida State after a bye week, and then you also have a bye week the next week. So Miami is going to be able to put all of their focus into this game. Again, you get the extra week to prepare. You don't have to worry about a game the next week. So you would expect Miami to really be prepared for this game. It's not great to have these bye weeks this early in the year, because after these 2 games, then you've got 7 straight games without a bye week. So it's very strange. After that bye week, they'll play Louisville on October 18th at home. Back-to-back home games here. They'll have Stanford on October 25th, and then they'll go on the road to play SMU on November 1st. And then it's back home for Syracuse on November 8th. And then on November 15th, they're home again against NC State. And then on the road at Virginia Tech, November 22nd. Close things out with Pittsburgh on the road, November 29th. And, just going back to the home and away, and I didn't even point this out, they've actually got 8 home games and only 4 road games. So that is a very, that's favorable. You do have the tough non-conference games, but all these non-conference games are at home. And of course, you're going to have to split the ACC games. So 8 games at home, only 4 games on the road, and 3 of those 4 road games are in November. So if you look at the entire month of September, October, you count the Notre Dame game, as August, whatever. So you look at the first 2 months of the season, basically, only 1 road game. They have 6 home games. They have 6 home games in their first 7 games. So that is interesting as well. This is one of the more unique schedules, I would say, but I think it sets up pretty well. You do wonder about them potentially running out of gas. We've seen some late season losses for Miami in some of these years where they've had good seasons going, and you do have the back-to-back road games. So I would be I would be a little bit concerned about those two road games to close things out, Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh. So how does this stack up with the other teams in the ACC, at least conference record-wise? Well, they're right there in the middle of the pack. So if you look at their opponents this year, they went 31-33 in the ACC last season, a 48% winning percentage, which again is right there in the middle of the pack. It's on the easier side, but it's pretty close to the middle. So you do have a manageable conference schedule there, but again, it's going to be that conference schedule, having to play Florida and Notre Dame. That's what makes this schedule a little bit more challenging for Miami in 2025. Before we get to the projected record for Miami, just want to let you all know we do have a Miami channel. If you're a Miami fan, check it out. There'll be a link down in the description below. Shows every week, videos throughout the week. Again, check it out if you're a Miami fan and subscribe. Miami has been one of the tougher teams to predict in college football. Let's just look at the projections for the last 4 years before we get to this year's projections. And again, this is based off of our projected record formula. You go to 2021, projected to go 8-4. They went 7-5, so we're pretty close to the projection. Missed it by one game. In 2022, 8-4 is the projection. They went just 5-7. And then in 23, 7-5 was the projection. They did go 7-5. And then last year, they beat the projection by 2 games. Projection was 8-4, and they went 10-2. So again, you look at 2022, they were under the projection by 3 games. And then last year, over the projection by 2 games. So those 2 years, again, not quite what we expected. But in 21 and 23, they were about what we expected. Again, this projection is not a prediction. It's simply a formula, and it's really all based off of our tier ranking. So here again, this is the schedule, and this is the scale that we use. So Miami is in tier 2. So if you go and look at our tier rankings, Miami is in tier number 2, and that means if they play another tier 2 team, it's in that 40 to 60% range. It's basically a 50-50 game. If they play a three-tier team, it's a 61 to 70% game if that game's at home. But if it's on the road, it does drop down into that 40 to 60% range. And that's kind of the way this works. So you look at the schedule, you don't really see any games on this schedule that Miami can't win, or any games that they're going to be big underdogs in. And so we'll start with actually the easier games. And so with our formula, they actually have 4 of these. They have Bethune-Cookman, South Florida, Stanford, and NC State. And look, I know NC State had a rough year last year. They've got a great coach. They've got a great program. They should bounce back this year, and they'll probably be better. But our formula, our tier rankings were based off of last season, and you could only move up or down one tier based off of returning production, transfer portal additions, things like that. NC State actually lost some key players as well. So they are down there pretty low, same spot as Stanford, and then you got Bethune-Cookman and South Florida. So based off of our formula, again, Miami, you feel good about these 4 games. You feel like Miami should be able to take care of business in all 4 of these games. And when we do our formula at the end, these will all be counted as wins. So 4 wins that you can, I wouldn't say guaranteed wins, but 4 wins that you're expecting to get if you're a Miami fan. And then you've got Florida State and Syracuse. Florida State on the road. Again, Florida State was at the bottom. They were in the very lowest tier last year. They were in tier number 6. And so we did move them up to tier 5 just because of the additions that they got this year. Expect them to be better, but we can't move them up any higher. And even though this game's on the road, still Miami, with our formula, has a great shot at winning. Also with those bye weeks on each side of that game, you feel pretty good. But it's a rivalry. You never know. And then you got Syracuse in the blue as well. I know how the game went last year, but still, with our formula, that one comes out in the blue, which means, Miami's probably going to be double-digit favorites in these 2 games. I would say probably right there around 10. And then we go to the games where they should be favored, but they're not going to be favored by a ton. So Louisville is 1 tier below Miami. They're in tier number 3. Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh are in tier 4, but those games are on the road. That's why they wind up in the purple. So yeah, Miami should be favored in these games. Again, I look at Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh right there at the end of the season. Both of those games on the road. Those 2 games worry me if I'm a Miami fan. But I do think Miami will be favored in these 3 matchups. And then that leaves Notre Dame, Florida, and SMU. And these are really the 50-50 games. Florida is in tier 2, right there with Miami. Notre Dame is in tier number 1. And, some people are going to say, well, look at what happened with Miami and Florida last year. Well, Florida was a different team late in the year. They got a lot better, and I think this should be a much more competitive game this year. But yeah, that's a 50-50 game based off of our formula. Notre Dame is in tier number 1, but that game's at home for Miami, so it's on the road for Notre Dame. Obviously, that makes that one a 50-50 game. I think Notre Dame's probably going to be favored, but not by a ton. And then SMU's in tier number 3. That game's on the road. That's why it is in the white. It's a 50-50 game. And really, those 3 games, I don't know that Miami wins all of these other games. You look at Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh. I could definitely see them tripping up and getting upset in one of those games. But it really is going to come down to these 3 games: Notre Dame, Florida, SMU. Can they go out and win 2 out of 3 of those games? If they can, I think the playoff, it's a very real possibility. But if you lose 2 of those, I think it's going to be tough because, again, with all these other games, there's a really good chance that they trip up somewhere. That's just the way it goes in college football. So what's the projection? Well, for Miami, the projection is 9-3. So again, that's, basically look at Notre Dame, Florida, SMU, Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Pittsburgh. You look at those 6 games, odds would say they're probably going to win 3 or 4 of those. And if they win 4, then you get to 10-2. And that is absolutely possible with this schedule. But 9-3 might be a little bit more likely. And even Florida State and Syracuse, you could possibly trip up and get upset in one of those games. So again, when you average it all out, you get a 9-3 projection for Miami in 2025. What are your thoughts on Miami? Give me your projections down in the comments below. And just a quick reminder, we do have memberships now available on the channel. If you'd like to learn more, there's a link down in the description below. It'll tell you about all the perks you can get. And again, you can help support the channel by becoming a member. I would greatly appreciate it. If you can't become a member, you can still help us out by liking and subscribing. And we'll see you in the next video.